Hi everybody, my name is Melanie Rogers and I'm inviting you all to tune in to my show, Flip the Switch, How to Find the Light in Every Dark Shadow, every Tuesday evening at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on clearsourceradio.com and iHeartRadio. Hey everyone, you are now listening to Flip the Switch, How to Find the Light in Every Dark Shadow on the Clear Source Radio Network. And as always, thank you so much for listening. Everybody, and Happy New Year, Happy 2019. I can't believe it's 2019 and I'm so super excited that it is. But before we get to that, once again, you're listening to your host, Melanie Rogers of Flip the Switch, How to Find the Light in Every Dark Shadow on Clear Source Radio, where people inspire people, and also heard on iHeartRadio. Okay, so I'm so super excited tonight. This isn't just excitement starting off the new year, show stuff, I guess. I'm already struggling with my words here. I actually have so much inside right now. It's hard to get it all out without squeezing it all together and pushing it all out at once. So, anyway, I'm excited about tonight's show mostly because anyone who's been following along I'll say it again, going on 2 years now, actually about a year and like 9 months, something like that, when everything just started happening in my life, all the depth really started coming through, life lessons and such. And it has led me over the last, like I said, about year and a half, year and 9 months, something like that, to come on here and pass along my life lessons. If you haven't gotten that out of listening to the show, that was basically how I felt. Talking about the things I was talking about was, things that I was thinking of, lessons I've learned, things that have come to me in the moment as life goes on. Okay, so I'm super excited about that. Is that 2018 was a heavy year. Okay, it was such a heavy year, and it was a heavy year for me. It was a heavy year for a lot of people I know, and I'm going to reiterate this 1,000 times over, so you might as well just prepare yourself in the future of hearing the name Elizabeth Peru. You would think that we were friends. You would think that somehow I got money for advertising, that she was a guest. No, none of the above. However, I have discovered her via Facebook, and I follow Elizabeth Peru, one of many different spiritual people, someone who is very well versed in planetary alignment and universal stuff. Okay, so needless to say, I know that a lot of people have been going through a difficult 2018, just like I did, but it was a very important year. I know that because of seeing things, that whole synchronicity thing, where we recognize each other and what we're going through on social media, or talking to each other, because believe it or not, there's still a little bit of that out there. It's not just about social media. And also, like I said, kind of validating that with people like Elizabeth Peru, my friend Shelley Wilson, who is a friend, but also very, very, very talented and gifted psychic medium and such. So many different people. I follow those people. Okay, a lot of them are my friends. Some of them I've never met, but it is a whole group of enlightened people, okay? And we gravitate toward those people who are supposed to be around us. We are mirror images of each other, okay? I'm going to talk about a lot of that stuff in my perspective, my eyes, okay? Now, once again, Happy New Year twofold. It is the very beginning of the year. We've only been in the year for, I can't even, 19 hours. Okay. We've only been in 2019 for 18, because I changed my time. 18 and a half hours. I'm aiming for an hour and a half. I have a lot I want to talk about, so that's why I started early tonight. an hour-and-a-half show to try to get out so many different things that I have, so many stories, so many perspectives and goals and motivation, and I'm trying to amp you up for the same. But like I said, Happy New Year 2019, but also Happy New Year as in, keep this in mind once again. I've talked about this. This is the third year in a row. All through the year, even if the year is perceived to be negative or difficult, just like last year was filled with difficult situations and heavy energy and all that, continue remembering the lessons that we've learned, which is why we go through those hard times. I say we, I mean me, but I also mean everybody else. So, and also try to hold on to the good stuff. We get overshadowed by the bad stuff, or what we consider the bad stuff. And the bad stuff meaning anything that happens that makes us feel bad. Okay, those emotions. But when we feel bad, it's with reason. A lot of times it means we're making bad choices, or we should be making different choices. A lot of times it's kind of shadowing or highlighting, if you will, parts of our lives that might be considered weak in the way that maybe we need them highlighted so that we can work on those parts of our lives. Okay, these are all the perceived negative parts of life. In my eyes, okay, we need to hold on to the lessons that we learned through these deep, dark, heavy times. My year last year was full of lessons, and I knew that, moment to moment. And many times it was very hard for me to hold my head above water. I had a lot of stuff coming up because of world events, because of just random triggers, and I had no idea why I would respond in such a negative way, or why it would come up within me in a negative way and such. But the one thing I've learned over time, kind of recently, within the last couple of years, basically within the time frame of starting the show, is that when I do mean we, but when I am really suffering through a heavy time, pay attention. I need to pay attention. I need to figure out why I'm being triggered. There's underlining reasons why we respond to things in a negative way or a difficult way, or why we go through bad emotions. And don't suppress those emotions. Allow them to flow through you, or else they're stifled down below, and they will come up at the most inopportune times. Okay, so that being said, Happy New Year twofold. Happy New Year. Are you still remembering the good parts of today? A lot of people are probably hungover. A lot of people are probably tired. Maybe the stress of the holidays and all that has gotten to you already. Let's keep focusing from the very beginning, which is what I'm going to try to do, on the good stuff, so that when we end this year, just like last year in 2017 and 2016, as I've said all these years, we're not saying bye-bye now. Don't let the door kick you in the butt. Please, next year, in this case 2019, at the end of this year 2020, please let that year save me. No. We've learned now that that's not the mindset. I've learned that's not the mindset for me to have. So, as difficult as the year may be, always remind yourself, everybody, let's all do this, throughout the year, what were the good things? Let's concentrate on that, because when we focus on the good parts of things, it just triggers something in our brain. We're happier. We see that there's reasons for going through the difficult times. And I think that's very important if you are experiencing heavy times, to always know that it's with reason, with purpose. Okay, so now I'm going to start. I want to start. I have different areas I want to go with this, and that's exactly why I chose to extend my time here for an hour and a half. I could probably go longer, but I'm going to try to fit it all in an hour and a half here. Let's just start. I have random notes here. Let's just start by talking about trusting in the process. Okay, that has a lot to do with my mindset of 2018 and why I was just telling you, one of the many reasons I was just reminding you of how difficult my year was, and that it was full of lessons and such. I personally believe that we all have a roadmap. Okay, it's in the stars, how our life is supposed to be. I personally believe in God, my higher self, the universe, however you want to characterize that, okay, as being this all-knowing entity. Like I said, whether it's ourselves, whatever, inside, deep inside, we know that enlightenment thing. When we become what we consider enlightened, maybe that is all of a sudden we have things open up inside that make us realize we should be going in a different direction, or this is how we need to be doing things to become the person who we are. I call that my higher self. Okay. So with that being said, I have learned, especially this past year, to start really trusting in the process. That process being all the universal stuff, life itself, okay? And that also meaning letting go of control of the outcome of any given situation, unless it is, of course there's going to be situations in business or goals that you are, say you are writing a book or you're doing a book report or anything like that. And, you're creating a recipe and you know what you want the end product to be, okay? Then, yeah, obviously you control the end. You work on it until you get exactly what you're looking for. I get it. Well, I'm talking about in relationships, and that means romantic, friendship, family, networks, jobs. Those are all relationships. It's how we relate to each other. It's how we relate to people. It's how we relate to opportunities, all that. So when I say relationships, a lot of times that's what I mean, all inclusive, okay? But when we attach ourselves, and this I do mean me, to the outcome, it leaves very little room along the journey to make turns and, the butterfly effect. One little thing will, and I have a good example of the butterfly effect, by the way. One little thing will turn you to the left or right and take you off course, okay? If we have a target destination on everything we do, relationships as in romance, okay? I fell into this myself many times, but I am realizing that is one of the big ones, especially. And, if we have a clear image of the outcome of something based on the facts we have in our head or the ideas we have or anything, then that leaves very little room to explore. How's that? Look at it like a map. We're going from one state to the next state. We're going, nope, I've got to get there at this time, and I've got to get there via this route. Okay, maybe there's, detours along the way, or maybe there's, something happens where it's not the best route, whatever. Then maybe when you get to that state, you're in a state of, chaos instead of, this is my happy place. I'm coming here for vacation. Picture that. I visualize. I'm going to visualize a lot probably in this show because I have a lot of pictures coming into my head. But picture that. You're going on vacation and you made this plan and you had no give. You had no room to give. You had a plan. Things were going to end up this way. And then you get there and the vacation ends up just being blah. Maybe it's because you didn't give it any stretch, okay? Maybe if you would have taken this road, okay, on a whim, life pushed you that direction, you would have ended up like driving along the coast. I came out of California before I came to Georgia, so, that happens. Do you take the 215 or the 5 or whichever roads? I don't even remember now where everything went, but that's my point. That's one of the biggest lessons I've learned over time, but especially in 2018, myself, is stop attaching myself to the outcome with clear vision of what I want. You can set it as a goal. You can visualize it. You can try to draw it to you. Law of attraction, universal thing, all that. But if you don't allow that picture to change, and sometimes the picture is actually like a face. You can picture somebody like in a relationship or whatever. And I've realized that if I'm too specific with stuff like that, it's not leaving it open for what's really meant to be. And that's what we're talking about right here is trust in the process. Have faith that all is as it is with purpose. Okay. Here's an example. I thought about this recently. Now, picture this. Here's a visualization. And this has to do with the butterfly effect. This has to do with trusting in the process, that no matter if you can even relate one thing to the next, you might not never know why something happens. Okay, this is why I think this is a really good example, and this is why you're probably at first going to have a hard time keeping up with it, because unless you're in my head with this, it's going to be hard to relate it. Stay with me. All right, say you are, here's different versions of you. I'm going to say me. There's different versions of me. Almost like a dream. It's like I might have this dream over here, and this is what I did over here on the right. I'm going to refer to it as the left Melanie and the right Melanie. Let's say the left Melanie is whatever she is. Say she went through difficult times in life for a period of time. Let's say it's a relationship. Okay, I've done this before in my life. I've done this a lot of times before. You know when, and here's a little background to make you understand why I'm choosing this particular scenario. You know when there's someone you have in your heart, or someone you have your eye on, or a situation even that you desire, even if it's not romantic, even if it's like a job or something like that. And maybe it'll affect you emotionally because of that feeling of being rejected. Rejection is in all forms, is it not? You can be rejected by friends, family, jobs. You can be rejected by cliques of people, anything like that. Our emotions go up and down. We tend to do different things based on different emotions, different circumstances. Say you were, this is the example, you had it in your head that you wanted a certain relationship. Okay, this one's an easy one because a lot of people I think will relate to this. How many times you see it on TV and such, these women, a lot of times they show women and how they have their tub of ice cream because they broke up with somebody, or, they got heartbroken, so they end up sitting there eating like the fried dough or whatever in the tub of ice cream. Okay, so we do different things to heal our emotions, to heal ourselves. It's actually masking it, but I'm going too far in depth with that. I just wanted to explain what I'm meaning by this. But let's say left Melanie was interested in a relationship. Left Melanie's heart became invested in that relationship. Melanie on the left was a very healthy person, mentally, physically, emotionally, all this kind of stuff, but had all these emotions up and down, and it affected her in different ways. Say at one point she became very healthy and decided, I need to focus on that for many different reasons. Okay, this isn't me, by the way. I want this out there as an example where you'd understand. A lot of times when we have situations like that and we go through those different emotions, we might do something like suddenly get in shape, suddenly eat healthy, or whatever we do to make ourselves feel better. In some specific situations, it could be to make yourself more desirable to that other person. In other situations, it could be the tail end of it. It's like, I need to focus on me again. I need to get me back after I feel like I've lost myself a little bit. Okay, build self-esteem. There's so many different parts. We all do different things. So I'm leading you into that for a reason. Melanie on the left, say, had her heart invested in something, someone, whatever. And the emotional part of it at some point caused that person to decide, I need to get me back, or I need to get healthy. I need to get, more physically fit. I need to feel better. For all those reasons, like I said, concentrate on yourself, build your self-esteem back up, do it to attract that person, do it to feel better physically so that you can actually feel better mentally and emotionally, whatever. Okay, but that's the example. Okay, you have Melanie on the left, going through lots of turmoil, lots of emotional ups and downs. The end result was at some point Melanie on the left ate really well, worked out, did whatever to feel better. Okay, now we're going to go to Melanie on the right. Say Melanie on the right never had any of those situations, never really went through, or, at some point, the same point as Melanie on the left, didn't really go through emotional trauma one way or another about anything in particular. Okay, so the need to self-soothe, which was actually one of my shows, by the way, that need to self-soothe never really happened. It was, it just wasn't part of life. Happy-go-lucky, or maybe, happy-go-lucky, maybe not happy-go-lucky, but no deep-rooted thing, I guess, to push Melanie on the right to suddenly try to get the health back or physical appearance or whatever it is. Now, say Melanie on the right at some point developed cancer because she was not eating right or doing whatever. Like I said, this is a very far-fetched example of 1,000 examples. Now, if you didn't know Melanie on the left, or the idea that at some point in time you could have made a decision to be Melanie on the left or Melanie on the right. Okay, at some point in time, maybe you could have made that decision to fall for somebody, to desire this relationship or this job or whatever it is. And instead, you went to the right because you were guided that way. And you may not have suffered the emotional trauma, but you ended up with cancer. Now, looking at that situation, I know that that was too involved, really, more involved than I actually expected to explain. Somebody looking at that situation can say, let's look at the overall view. Melanie on the left ends up healthy. Okay, Melanie on the right ends up dying of cancer. A person would look at Melanie on the right before they knew about the cancer and think, I would so rather be that person who was just happy-go-lucky, whatever, than the person on the left who was emotionally traumatized or whatever. Okay, but then the outcome is different. Do you kind of see what I'm saying? I'm not explaining this really great, but what I'm saying is that's an example of, without having any clue that there was a different place you could have been, that you could have made different life choices, you could have gone through a whole lot of pain and turmoil, you're looking on the right saying, why is this happening? Or, I guess what I'm trying to say is perspective. It's all about perspective. Okay, perspective of the person on the right. Maybe the reason the person on the left ended up going left and going through all the trauma of whatever situation. Maybe the underlying reason of the whole thing was that so that she would find a reason to dive in and become healthy again, so that she didn't become the person on the right who died of cancer. Okay, I'm sorry that I explained it, so kind of all over the place. It was much more of a visual in my mind, a clear visual in my mind. But I hope you see what I'm saying with that. Those are two completely different scenarios that can happen to the same person. You never know which way you're going to go. You never know which way you could have gone. All right. So when you feel like you're going through such a difficult time, like this year was hard for me. There were a lot of things. One of them was actual heart, opening that heart area and such. But if you don't pay attention to the fact that there are lessons in everything, and you have to grab those lessons and run with them, if you don't learn the lessons to make changes in your life, then those are wasted. Then all that stress I would have gone under with many different areas of life. I had a lot of stuff come up. I was dealing with a lot, but I kept in mind that it was with reason. I kept in mind that even if I didn't know what the outcome would be, that it was to have faith. Okay, so Melanie on the left goes through all this strain and all this kind of stuff, but ends up healthy, ends up learning lessons. Melanie on the right, if I would have continued, say I was on that venture, would have no idea that the cancer was coming. Okay, yeah. Like I said, I hope that you understand what I was trying to say with that. You never know why you may suffer something. Maybe you can look at Melanie on the right, and even though maybe she died of cancer, maybe she didn't, maybe she just developed cancer, maybe something else happened, you would look saying, why am I going through this? I never deal with stress, this or that. Why am I the one suffering this? Maybe you can look at her as the lucky one and say, look deep inside and understand that, wait a minute, I could have had that scenario over there where I was going through all this emotional turmoil. You never know exactly what you're avoiding by going through whatever you may going through. See what I'm saying? That's what I'm talking about right there. It's just trust. Have faith that all is as it should be, even if it seems like it's not the place you want to be. Now, if you're heading into a certain area of life and you really don't want to be there, that was another lesson in my life. I realized a lot of things that I was setting myself up in life differently than I wanted the outcome to be, the visualization I had of my future. And it's like, when are you going to start actually working toward that life? Okay, so those were other reasons. Have faith in the process that sometimes, something will happen to open up your eyes that you are not living the life that you are meant to live, to create that happiness, to be 100% you, whatever, i.e. me. All right. Hope I explained some of that halfway decent. All right. So here, I'm going to give you some examples. First off, this is funny. I was talking to my dad. I think it was last week. I was talking to my dad on the phone, and I was telling him that, you know what? I think it's kind of time that my little Rocky, my dog Rocky, gets a little wife. He needs an Adrian, okay? And I told him, and I described the type of dog that I want for him, because I want it to be, I'm not particular when it comes to me, but for him, I said I want her to be small. I want her to be sweet, not aggressive, because he's a little dominant thing, but I want it to be a female. And two small dogs, there's really no difference with two small dogs as as there is with two large dogs. I just had two large dogs. You know this because that started all of this. So anyway, I was telling him this and I was giving him details. So what I told him, he said, sounds to me like you are ready to go and get a dog. And I said, no. I said, it's going to be one of those scenarios that just happens when it's supposed to. So he stopped me and he said, you know what I'm hearing, he says, is that you have a definite idea of exactly what you want. He says, but you keep throwing it out there like it's just going to happen. And that triggered a lot of scenarios when I was telling him why I have that frame of mind, because that works for me. And I realized later on, actually, as I was thinking of all the stuff for the show, everything that I wanted to talk about, everything that I've realized, it really fit in with having faith that everything is as it should be. Okay? Now, here's why. I told him, I was like, Daddy, do you realize though? I said, think about all the animals I've had. My first dog was Desi Lou. Now, I had gone to the shelter and I did my own version of volunteering, which meant I would go in there for an hour or two at a time, and I would go to one cage after another, and I'd get in there with the dogs. Sometimes it wasn't the smartest thing in the world, but it never got bit. And I would calm them down. I did get bit one time, actually. I would try to calm them down. I would show them love. I was healing. I didn't even realize it. Back then, I didn't even know what an empath was. I didn't know any of that. But I realized that that's what I was doing. And I realized that recently, that what I was doing was I was going in there and I was healing, calming these animals, and in return, they were filling me back up. There was an interesting little side note really quickly. I posted this recently, and I posted it on my Facebook page, my show page. There was a visualization of an empath, and it showed this cartoon character walking from person to person who had issues. This person over here was hurting over a relationship. This person over here was hurting over maybe a job, anything. But it was a quick visualization, a quick cartoon, and the outline of this person would touch the other one and calm them, make them feel better. And it would show all the darkness that was in that person, whatever they were suffering. It went into the empath. Okay, so that person suddenly was shiny again, happy, they were healed, they walked away. Okay. The empath was now filled with a little bit of darkness. And you can see as they showed the cartoon character walking, they were sluggish, they were weighed down, they had stuff weighing them down now. Went to the next person who was filled with a whole bunch of stuff. Gave them a hug, calmed them, healed them. That person suddenly, they showed once again, the darkness left the one cartoon character, went into the empath. So that was the idea of it, was that an empath goes and heals and absorbs that negative energy. Everybody else is healed, and then the empath walks around going, I've got all this inside. And I thought it was great because what it showed at the end was the empath went home to the dog. I could choke up. You know I'm sensitive here. Went home to the dog and cuddled the dog. And the empath, I forget exactly how it showed it. I think it showed the darkness actually kind of hit the dog and then went up into the air, and they were both bright and shiny. Now, I've read, you talk about synchronicity, talking about a lot of this recently, I start seeing this kind of stuff about empaths, about how animals rejuvenate an empath, how an empath picks up everybody else's crap, basically, and we do. And then an animal, that's why empaths love animals. Animals heal sensitive people. Okay, sensitive people have compassion to help absorb that negative energy from other people who are going through problems. So I thought that was really interesting. So I'm realizing now that that's actually why, when I was doing that, what was happening. Okay, now, a lot of the scenarios I would go home with, and it was hard for me. Hearing the crying, I can't handle that. Hearing the intense barking, all this kind of stuff, especially if one was scared or sad, was hard for me. Okay. Now let's get back to the story at hand. Desi Lou. I had gone for a couple of months, and then I finally decided, I was with one dog after another. And then I finally was leaving one day, and I made the decision that, no, you know what? I don't think I'm ready for one yet. It was my first house. I love dogs. I've grown up with dogs, but I wanted it to be a perfect scenario. Keep that in mind. I was trying to control and make it a perfect scenario. After being around so many animals, I became very, believe it or not, desensitized to where I started being picky. Now, I think that had to do with you get desensitized after being around chaotic. It's an empath picking up energy. Once you pick up all this negative energy, suddenly it's not a good thing. It's okay, I can't be around all this or whatever. It's going to require something very special. Okay. In my mind, that's what I was feeling. I know this now. So I was walking out, and there was the cutest little doggy, little pup, in the adult section at the very end, the second one from the end, and it was a little, I think it was a little yellow lab or a baby golden retriever. Cutest thing ever, but I had just made the decision because I controlled the outcome, I thought. I had made the decision that, no, I'm not ready yet. When the right one comes, they'll come to me. Now, I look over, and they had a little bandana around his neck. So I was like, okay, I'm going to, I've got to pet you. So I got in the cage. I picked him up. I cuddled him. I'm like, oh, you're so cute. Put him back down because I still was like, nope, attaching to the outcome. Close the door. Now, I am fully ready to leave. Got my little, fix from my pup that made me feel better. And that's what I'm realizing right now in this moment, that little puppy actually helped drain me of some of the negative energy and filled me back up with that oh so sweet love. I crave this. To where I started walking past the last cage and kind of glanced in, and there was this little pup looking up at me like, hey, what's up? That's, I visualize, like I said, I always visualize what they're thinking and saying. He's just looking, he's all cool. He's not full of anxiety. He's just friendly, looking up, going, hey, what's up? So I looked at him, and I'm like, okay, I'll pet you too. Now, here's where Mel loses that attachment to the outcome. I went into the cage, I picked him straight up, looked him straight in the eyes, and I said this out loud. I said, oh no. I knew at that moment that the outcome just changed. I knew at that moment that the right dog for me found me. Now, I was there looking, yes. You can say that was me controlling it, but no, it wasn't. I had faith that the right dog would come to me, and he ended up being my dog. I adopted him that night going, are you kidding me? I had no intention of taking one home by the time it was done. That was one scenario. Then I started telling my dad I said, remember my cat Frankie? I have Frankie right now. I said, do you remember Frankie now? I said, Frankie was actually I was at my parents' house, and we were talking about what kind of home I wanted in my future. Once again, looking into the future of what type of life I want. And once again, realizing I have not worked toward that particular life, that home and such. And I was telling him, I said, I kind of want to end up in a place like this where I can have outdoor animals because they'll stay here. They have plenty of room. My parents have a big home. They've got 2 garages, and they have a big barn. Their cats and their dogs are treated amazing. These cats have all of these nice warm places to stay, but yet they can roam at the same time. Now, yes, I know that's a double-edged sword. They can get out in traffic, everything else. But because the home is set up the way it is, they'll go in the back into the wooded area sometimes, which is still a risk, yes. But this way, they can take care of as many cats that come their way, okay? And they're not condemned into, one small place. So moral of the story is that, and this is back in Ohio, and a lot of places are like that, big, farms and barns and stables and all that kind of stuff. That's just the way it is. So I remember telling my parents, I was like, well, I always visualize being in a place like this someday so that I can have whatever animal I want, and I can have as many cats as I want too, to where they're just here. They're just on the property, but yet they're not confined in the house. And I turned around and I looked up the driveway, and it was funny because I said kind of like that right there, because I was talking about where any stray can come to me and I can keep them. Okay? And I said kind of like that right there. And we turned around and we saw this little black and white kitten meowing like crazy walking up the long driveway. And I ended up with that cat, ended up being my Frankie. And I was like, wow, I was literally just talking about being able to take in a stray cat or whenever I needed to, and one came and found me. Okay, so I still have Frankie. Then I was telling my dad, I said, so that is another case where I kind of put it out there in the universe what I wanted, and they showed up. Okay, mind you, we were talking about the home, but I was talking about being able to take in, whatever stray found me. That was the point of it. It was whoever finds me, they're meant to be with me, and in my present situation, I can't just take in any stray cat. Okay, so another situation, my Bosco and journey. If you've listened to the show over the last year and 9 months, you know about my Bosco and journey. It opened up all of this. It opened up everything within me. You can go back to practically any show and understand what I mean by that if you're new to the show. Now, Bosco and Journey, here's what happened. Once again, my Desi had gotten hit by a car. May he rest in peace, my sweet little Desi. When I went back to Ohio, to visit. He was full of anxiety. I should have known that. I didn't. I had to let go of the guilt at some point. He got out, and coming back, he ended up getting hit on the freeway. Now, it was quick, and you can see it was quick and instant, which was my saving grace right there. So when I decided that I'm going to go and I'm going to do the same thing, I had the same thing in mind, that I'm going to go back to, and it's Cobb County Animal Control here in Georgia, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to wait until the right dog finds me. I would take them all. I would. But there's something about certain ones that do connect. There are certain ones, I believe, that, especially an animal lover, especially an empath, there are certain ones that there is a connection, an actual connection. And you know it when you feel it. You can be around all these animals, love all of them, want to take them all in, but all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, uh-oh. And that's what happened. I started doing my own version of volunteering until the supervisor actually said, okay, everyone's kind of wondering what you're doing. They're worried about you. I had won him over because I told him what I was doing, and he appreciated that. And we became kind of friends, so eventually he gave me the official volunteer tour and then told me, he says, just come in on my watch. You can go, you can do whatever you want. You don't have to do the official volunteer thing, So I started on my own taking pictures of the dog, and I would turn those in, of the different dogs. I would turn those in so that they would list them on Pet Finders. I was trying to do whatever I could to help the animals because I didn't have my dog. And believe it or not, when I went in there, I wasn't going in there to find another dog initially, now that I think about it. I was going in there to try to help as many dogs as possible because in my mind, if I got dogs, then I'm helping, one dog. If I don't get any animals, then I can help out as many as possible. Okay. Doesn't always work the way you want it to or the way you think it should work, and that's the point of all this. And there's always reason behind that. So, needless to say, there's 2 dogs that I kept seeing, and I went in for a couple of months, 2 months, but there were 2 dogs that I kept getting closer and closer to, and they kept getting closer and closer to me. I can tell when they saw me, they would light up, they recognized me, we had a relationship. One was a German Shepherd named Bosco, my baby Bosco. Now, Bosco was a cool dog. I get excited when I see German Shepherds. We know this. I'm a German Shepherd girl. Bosco was in his cage, and I looked down, and I'm like, oh, look, a German Shepherd. I love German Shepherds, and I'm talking to him, telling him this, right? And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to get in there because he seems so friendly. I get in there, and this was a dual-sided cage where when it's not that full, they will open up the middle. The dog has 2 different sides with a hole in the middle, can go on either side, either cage, okay? So he was in his own cage there, and the middle was open. So I opened up the cage, and he got nervous. All of a sudden, he put his head down a little bit. Now, okay, this wasn't the smartest thing in the world, I get it. But I watched a lot of Cesar Millan, so I kind of took upon myself how to approach an animal like that. I know a lot of you are going, you are so stupid. But you know what? I did what I did. I got in the cage. I closed it. He kind of kept slowly. It's like he didn't want to be afraid of me, but he was unsure of my intentions. So he slowly went through the hole in the middle and went to the other side of the cage. Well, I followed him, therefore trapping him. I know. So anyway, what he ended up doing was he went to the other side of the cage where the bars were from the other side, and he laid down in a ball. Picturing that right now, I could choke up. I'm struggling not to because I want to continue with this story. He rolled up in a ball, and I was trying to calm him down by talking. He would turn around and look at me, and then he would show his teeth, but not in an aggressive way, more like a, please don't make me bite you. Please don't do anything to me. It was so sad, and it was so pathetic. So I sat down beside him, and I would just look forward. I wouldn't look at him. I looked forward. I would touch his paw. When I touched his paw, he'd show his teeth. He'd pull his paw again. So I would just act like, I'm not even paying attention to anything. I even started kind of talking and looking the other direction to confuse him, make him not feel like I was aiming it at him. Eventually what ended up happening, and yes, you're going to think I'm really stupid about this one, is I had my hand down by his paw. I didn't touch it. He kind of was getting a little bit closer to me and really curious. I didn't look at him, but I put my head down close to his. Yeah, I know. He looked over and kind of sniffed at my head, and when he did that, I touched his paw at the same time. And when I touched his paw, he kind of jumped a little bit, and then I looked over at him, and then he reached over and he licked my face. So I started rubbing his paw, and he didn't put it away. That moment, something changed. He flipped his body over on top of me and started rubbing into me like he was trying to become part of me. He was a big German Shepherd, and he was rolling around like, oh my God, finally I found my soulmate or something. It was the sweetest thing ever, but, I've got a lot to talk about, so I'm harping on this because I miss my babies. Bosco ended up being my buddy for a few more weeks. Okay. He would listen to me. He wouldn't listen to others. One time I had somebody come in to look at him, and I hid around the corner. I was trying to get Bosco to come out of his cage because they were trying to get him to, and he was timid. He looked around the corner and saw me, and I started kind of whispering. I'm like, come on, come on. So he walked out. Okay, so we formed a special bond. There was another one, Journey. And there was something about her when I first walked by her cage the very first time. I was tired. I had been in so many cages, I was ready to leave. I turned around and I looked at Journey, and I thought that she looked sick. Like she was just laying there staring. And Journey, everyone started knowing Journey as the soulful eyes. She would just stare you down. She would look straight into your eyes, and it would melt your heart. So anyway, I got in the cage with her, and I kept, touching underneath her chin and stuff, and she was really hot. So I ended up going up there, and I said, the dog in cage number whatever. I think maybe sick. Could you check on her? She seems like she's running really hot. She's really still. That's how I met Journey. Over time, Journey would perk up. She was a serious little dog. They said that she didn't get along with other animals, therefore she had her own cage, that she was aggressive and everything else. Journey would just perk up when she saw me. Now, skip forward. I know this is a long story, but we're still talking about having faith in the outcome. Skip forward. I go in one day, and I see both of them, and now you want to talk about synchronicity. Their cages, they keep moving their cages, by the way, as it fills up, as different protocol, whatever. So I would go in, and they'd be in a different cage, and it's a huge place, so I'd find them in different parts of the building. One day, I finally came in there, and I see them both beside each other. They're both in cages beside each other. So I'm like, oh, there's my two babies, whatever. I ended up going in because something changed inside of me. I realized that, what if I come in here tomorrow and they're not here? I won't know if they got adopted or got put down because they were both such beautiful dogs and so sweet. I couldn't imagine, over these 2 months, I could not imagine them not being adopted. I was surprised every time I went in there to see that they weren't adopted, okay? All of a sudden, out of nowhere, it hit me. If I come in tomorrow and they're not here, I won't know if they got put down, and I don't know that I can deal with that. All of a sudden, something changed inside of me. So what I did was I went to the supervisor, and I said, I have something to ask you. And he's like, what? I said, I know that you don't do this. And he goes, which one? Because they don't hold dogs. He said, which one? And I said, well, there's two. I said, there's two different ones, and I've kind of bonded with them. I said, I have somebody coming back looking at the German Shepherd. I'm going to try to talk them into adopting him. I said, but I can't let them be put down. I said, I don't know how I will handle it if they get put down. He asked me for the cage numbers. He looked in this huge pile of papers on his desk, and he said they were supposed to have been put down today. The only reason they weren't, this was an emotional moment for me, so I'm sorry. And I choked up then and there as well because I realized, oh my God, like how did this lead me in here at this particular moment? He said, wow, I'm surprised they weren't. He says, but then again, the person who does that was actually at a meeting that was unexpected all morning. That's why they're still here. So he says, I will put a hold on. I said, you know what? Never mind then. I said, I'm going to take the girl. Because I realized if she had been there for 2 months, she's not going to get adopted overnight unless it's a miracle, which I wasn't willing to bet. I said, I'll take her home. I said, I have somebody looking at the German Shepherd. I'd convince him to come back with his wife. I said, if they don't adopt, I said, can you make sure he does not get put down? I said, I'll make it happen. I don't know how it's going to happen. She's aggressive toward dogs. I have 2 cats. I don't know how this is going to work. I can't let him be put down. So he put a hold on Bosco. And the guy did come in. His wife had just had a hysterectomy. He said that's too much energy. It's too much of a dog for him at that moment, for them at that moment, and I understood that. So within 4 days, I ended up, I think it was 4 days apart, I ended up with these 2 dogs. Now, it was interesting at first, trying to figure out how this is going to work, but I made the determination that it's going to have to. Okay? You know by now how special they were to me. They were my soulmates. They became each other's soulmates. They became a pack with my cats. We were a family. There was so much that started when I lost them, which led to this whole series of shows I've done. So I know that was a long story. I've been meaning to tell you that story, though, because it's special to me. Talk about meant to be, and it will just happen without going and deciding. That was another story of having faith in whatever is meant to be will be when it comes to animals in these cases. Now, let me see. Those are a couple of my animal stories. I had a couple more. Every animal I've ended up with has some sort of story attached like that. Rocky, I will tell you, Rocky, my little soulmate now. I ended up finding Rocky. You know that I've been going through all of this because of the shows. On my trip home last year, on my trip back from Ohio, I'm pulling a trailer, everything else. It's like, 11 o'clock at night. I just happen to pull into a drive-thru, which I don't normally do. I do when I'm on the road, but I don't eat drive-thru food. But suddenly I had a craving out of nowhere. I had a craving for some sort of potato. Okay, so I did what I normally wouldn't do, and I drove through a KFC Taco Bell combination place. And who do I see walking in front of traffic? Who leaves? Because there's a lot of people in the drive-thru. Suddenly I don't see Rocky. I'm like, okay, good. And I told God, my version of God, I said, everything's meant to be. Whatever's meant to be is meant to be. I've come to learn that when it comes to animals. I was like, please let that dog find his way back home, because otherwise I have to take him, and I'm in a different state. I don't know what to do. I will have to take him. I said, which I'm willing to do, because what's meant to be will be. I was hoping not to see him. I was hoping, because last I saw him, he was walking toward a complex, whether it was apartments, I think it was a housing complex. Needless to say, a few minutes later, I looked down, and in front of, I was looking under the car, but it was in front of another car. I see these little feet, and I'm going, wait a minute, uh-oh. That car had to stop for this dog to walk in front of it, and then the car went. I pull up to the drive-thru. I had to stop because Rocky, as we now know Rocky, stood in front of my car. And then cut me off, of course, went up to the drive-thru and looked up like, where's my order? And I'm like, okay, I'll just wait for you. So I just simply got out of the car, picked him up, and said, okay, come on. You know that Rocky's like my little love. He's the love of my life right now. It was meant to be. All of these scenarios are what's meant to be, and that was when I released control of what do I want, let me go and control it and find it. And that's the point of those stories. Now, a couple more stories when it comes to that. Finding my first house. I've got to hurry. I've got a lot to talk about. Finding my first house. I am in my first and only home that I've owned on my own. Now, when I first got here to Georgia and I decided to look for a home, I didn't know what I was doing. I had never searched for a home before. What I decided to do, because of the advice of a good friend at work, I was new at work, and he told me, he says, you know what you could do? I'm that person, we all know this by now, I'm an independent person. I like doing things, I don't like feeling pressured. I despise going looking for cars, which I'm about to do, which is another part of the story, because I'm not really nice to him either. Believe it or not, I'm very direct. Like, I will let you know when I have a question. Don't try roping me into questions and this and that. I know what I'm looking for. I'll find it, and then I'll come and betcha. That's me. So I don't like being pressured into anything. I'm too independent and too intelligent for that. So finding my home, somebody suggested that I just go to a realtor and ask for listings. All right, so I went and I got some listings. And I searched. I didn't know my way around. Most of the time I'd get lost, which was good, because when I go and I get lost in a new place, I start figuring out my way around. Needless to say, at first I had a clear idea of what I wanted, what was, whatever. Once again, attached to the specific outcome. So I went to one house after another, and it became the same as the animal shelter, where after a while you lose that excitement, and it's so much, it's overwhelming, it's overbearing. It's just kind of like, I don't want to do this anymore. But I knew I had to, all right? As soon as I got to that point where I decided, you know what, I'm about to just cave. I'm about to just, give up on some of these dead set, like, it's got to be this or it's got to be that, or I've really got to feel it, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just going to have to settle. Well, I didn't like that idea of deciding that I was going to have to settle. But what I did was I released a little bit of control and let myself breathe for a moment, thinking, you got to give yourself a breath. You've been stomping so hard around town trying to find a place. It was wearing me down. Needless to say, I got lost in a housing complex. So I just start driving around looking for sale signs. All of a sudden, I turn around the corner and I see this home with a for sale sign. And I'm like, oh my gosh, eureka. It was just like when I looked into Desi's eyes. It was just like when I walked into the supervisor and realized that these two dogs, like that day, realized I can't let these dogs be put down. I looked at the house and I said, that's it. Funny thing is that I looked down at my listings because I didn't know what street I was on. I was completely lost to where I was in and out of complexes without paying attention. I looked up at the street and I'm like, that sounds really familiar though. Do you know that listing was actually part of my listings? I never got to it. I got lost and found it. It was supposed to be. And I ended up at that house. Okay? And the thing is, the things I was concentrating on that I really wanted, all of a sudden it took second place to the things I saw. All of a sudden I saw a big yard. I saw a fenced-in yard. I saw a big deck. The other things in the house, which I still want, all of a sudden I let go of that need to have everything perfect in my eyes, and I found the home I wanted. Now, I love my house. I talk about needing it upgraded and wanting to move on because, I'm ready to move on from it, but it's been the perfect house for me. So you see what I'm saying once again, when you release a little bit of control and just have faith, then it happens. Now, let me see. Finding my car. People who have known me like years ago especially know that I have a love for my old car. Had my car, I think, for like 18 years. I bought it in California a year new, and it was a Chrysler Sebring convertible. Now, here's a short story about that. I'll try to make it short. I was going to buy a car really for the first time at a lot. Okay, I bought privately before. It was an easier process. This is the first time I actually went searching for a car. I had a clear idea of what I wanted. There you go, attaching to the outcome. I wanted a convertible. I wanted it to have a decent size. I wanted it to feel like a sedan. I wanted it to be white with black top. Okay, this was an image in my head. Now, I went and I thought I wanted a Celica until I found out a Celica was only a 4-cylinder. Then I wanted a Mustang until I got into a Mustang and it wasn't really comfortable. Then I said, let me check out the Camaro. It's hot. I'm in California. My mom convinced me that a 20-some-year-old in California, I should probably be driving a sports car instead of the big truck with a rack and toolbox that I was driving, even though I loved that vehicle. So anyway, I decided to check out the Camaro. It was uncomfortable. There's just something about it that I was like, this just doesn't feel right. I got worn down once again to the point where I was like, I'm going to have to just pick something soon. I just, I'm not going to end up. I got to the point where I really didn't think I was going to get what I really wanted. That image in my mind, that feeling I was craving, and that's a big part of it right there, the feeling I was craving. Nothing clicked. I walked into another car dealership, right? All of a sudden, there's this car on display, and I looked at it and I was like, what is this? I had looked into so many cars. I was obsessive about knowing so much about these cars. I had no idea what this car really was, and it fit every bit of my criteria. And I asked the guy, I was like, what is this? And he says, well, that's a Sebring. That's a Chrysler Sebring convertible. And I'm like, I need to take a ride in this. I rode around in this, and it's funny because I was so hardcore with all of these people trying to sell me the car. Like I said, I would tell them, I will find you. I'm not, no, thank you, no, thank you. I was very set in my ways. I turned around and looked at him during the test drive, and I just said, I totally acted like an airhead, and I said, I have to have this car. Needless to say, I ended up paying more than I was willing to pay for a car, or had it in my head that I was going to pay for a car, but all of a sudden it didn't matter because I kind of, like I said, I gave up on the attached outcome. And I kind of did when I decided, well, I'm just going to have to give up on the fact that perfection exists for me. And when it comes to exactly what I'm looking for, the feeling of the car, as soon as I gave up on that notion and felt like I was just going to have to settle or even give up on getting a car, just keep my truck, the right car found me. I had that car for 18 years. I worked on it myself. I think I had it for 18 years or 17. I worked on it myself. I was heartbroken when it finally broke down to the point where I had to get rid of it. Okay, now that leads me to my next thing. I ended up buying, when I finally had to get rid of it 3 years ago, I ended up buying my Toyota 4Runner. I am bonded with my Toyota 4Runner. Last week, I totaled my Toyota 4Runner. Yes, I got into a car accident. They consider it totaled. I am still waiting to see where that goes. But how that has also led me to a good place is that even though I'm going to have to spend more money now, they're really not compensating me for a whole lot, unfortunately, depreciation and such. It is a loss for me, especially the fact that I was not ready to get rid of that vehicle. I was going to have that vehicle through retirement, okay? And it's a very good vehicle. It would have lasted me that long. So what I did was, and I didn't really do this consciously, I started thinking about these scenarios anyway, only because this is what we call synchronicity, enlightenment, all this kind of stuff, is that kind of stuff started coming to the top of my head randomly out of nowhere, and now I understand why. It was the lesson. It was that information that's pushing its way through, tapping me on the shoulder, going, remember this? Remember Desi? Remember how you got your dogs? Remember how you got your last car? You remember all this? Keep that in mind while you're sitting here feeling frustrated and unhappy about the situation. And I realized that instead of being so chronically sad and unhappy and kicking myself for getting into an accident, realizing how much money I've costed myself and everything else, let's look at that as an opportunity to find something and be happy with something new. Not brand new. I'm not going to get brand new, but new to me. And that initial feeling of, let's not even bother going to where, well, I have to just settle with something. Get what I want and just live with that. Use that as a next phase. Okay, was that planned? No, I had a plan. My vehicle was going to take me through retirement. This is not part of the plan, but you know what? When you release that control, and in this case, I had no choice to release control of the outcome. I had no choice because that accident, which I got a lot of lessons out of that accident in itself, that was probably part of it. I'm now realizing right now that might have been part of it in itself. Is another lesson before we had gotten to 2019, because that's been the main thing. One of the main things is release control of the outcome. Stop trying so hard to plan everything, every bit of your life to where you're not getting that. It's not working out that way. You're not obtaining the life that you are planning. So maybe getting into that accident was for so many lessons, and part of that lesson was right off the bat, let's stop the plan, go with it. Now what are you going to do? Okay, I've got a couple choices. I can boo-hoo about it. I can end up using it as an excuse forever, like, gosh, now I'm down on my luck, down on money, blah, blah, blah. Or I can say, okay, now we're going to find something else that's fantastic. And if something happens to that vehicle, then we'll figure out a way, or another one, or whatever. It keeps my plan changing. It keeps shaking me up so that I stop controlling the outcome, or trying to, because I'm not getting the outcome that I want, ever. Okay, so those are a couple of examples. Now that's what I really wanted to, tell you beforehand, before we get into the rest of this, is trust in the process. I have learned personally over the years, now more than ever, trust in the process. I was talking, I think it was 2 weeks ago, about a simple scenario. Now it didn't lead to a big romance or anything else, about how I was having a hard time letting go of one situation that I had in my mind set up beginning to end and how it was supposed to go. Okay, and then within a few hours, being pulled away from that scenario by someone who just popped up randomly, was in and out of my life in 2 seconds. Don't even know if I'll ever even talk to the person again. But how that helped me disconnect and realize that you need to stop attaching to the outcome, because you never know when something is going to come along and show you what you really want. Okay? And in that case, like I talked a couple weeks ago, it was more the feeling behind it. How I felt within a few hours versus how I have felt, for a while. And it's like, it doesn't matter the person. It doesn't matter the circumstance. It doesn't matter if, that none of that really matters. What actually matters is the feeling behind it. The car. It was the feeling behind it. Didn't end up being what I was planning on it being. The feeling, I knew it was meant to be, because the feeling behind it was there, to where I just said, I have to have this car. Okay. My animals, so many choices. All of a sudden, gave up everything, going, okay, this isn't in the plan, but I got that feeling. They were my soulmates. That's my point. Okay. So now, next note we have here, because we are, I'm going to give it an hour and a half. I think it's an hour and a half. That's what I'm aiming for, and that's why I started when I did. Okay, here's a little note I wrote. When you can let go of trying to control the outcome of what you desire, this is my own quote, by the way, when you can let go of trying to control the outcome, what you truly desire, or what's best for you, shows up, doesn't it? When you finally let go. And the example I just gave, as far as like the romantic thing or whatever, is when I finally made a decision that I had to let go, because it wasn't both ways, first of all, but I had to let go because I realized I was making myself feel like my own self-esteem was plummeting, everything else. because of not letting go of what I considered the future perfect scenario for me. Okay. As soon as I made that decision and I said, I've got to let go and I've got to do it with love, all of a sudden I had the other scenario come along and make me feel the way I wanted to. So that is a huge part of that. And it's always as soon as you let go. Or with me, it's always as soon as I let go. That's how it works. I am truly, truly fascinated by that concept, and I truly believe in it at this point. Okay, so now, let me see. I have on here, give examples of, quote, negative situations or perspectives that actually being positive or simple lessons. Now, I already told you one of those, my car accident, how I'm now looking at that as a positive thing. I choose to take out the lessons and stop holding on to the guilt or, looking at myself like I'm an idiot because I'm the one that ran into somebody. I stopped looking at, okay, if I wouldn't have gone past my exit to go and buy ingredients to make cookies for my crew, I would have been home and never would have been in the accident. But that's the butterfly effect. That's the beginning, like I told you at the very beginning, the difference between, or maybe that person fell for that person and ended up, going through bad times, but then pulled themselves up by eating correctly, therefore never developing cancer. Or there's that person that went this direction, decided not to attach themselves to anybody, any outcome, whatever, never had a reason to get into shape or healthy, end up with cancer. Just examples, okay? Butterfly effect. If I would have exited, who knows? Who knows right now? I could have a total, you never know what can happen. I could have exited and ran into my soulmate in the grocery store. Or I could have exited and hit a dog and killed them. Okay, you never know. And that's why part of releasing control in my eyes, part of releasing control is releasing the need to understand everything. Let's release in 2019 that need to understand why everything happens. Closure is one thing, but there's so many scenarios where you're never going to understand because you will never be able to connect the two. Who'd connect those two scenarios I just said? That's the way my brain works. And I'll think of that in so many different ways, but anything could be the result of anything, and a normal human brain would never connect the two. They would say, how does this over here have anything to do with that over there? You never know. Okay, so I believe we should stop trying so hard to understand everything. Life's fascinating to me, and that's why I look at it from all perspectives, though. And we talked about that, the overthinking versus deep thinking. As a deep thinker, I'm fascinated by life. So instead of trying to figure things out for closure to, put a label on it, that's been figured out, we can move to the next thing. I personally like to keep figuring things out as possibilities because it opens a bunch of doors. Okay, it opens a bunch of doors, and to me, that's what the paranormal world is about. Being a part of the paranormal world, a lot of people are trying to figure out exactly what happens. To me, there's so many possibilities. That's what's fascinating, understanding that there's so many possibilities. All right, so the other thing I was going to tell you is another little situation, and I don't really know that this is, the positive part of the situation in perspective would probably be me learning a lesson. And I almost ran over myself with my own car once. Okay, negative situation, but this also falls along the line with having faith that things are going to end up how they are. Me not getting killed in that car accident last week is having faith. This is also, trust in your angels, if you believe in angels, or even just your luck. I have unbelievably good luck with all this kind of stuff. This is part of what I wanted to tell you about that story, so I'm going to go back. I hit full blast. I don't even remember. It was honestly like a dream. I try to piece together the moments before, and I cannot. It was snapshots, but all I remember was hitting the car in front of me, knowing that I hitting my brakes, and the car coming up toward me, and thinking my airbag's about to deploy. Okay, I can't remember before that. I think I looked in my rearview mirror as soon as I hit to see if someone was going to hit me. That's all I remember. To the point where I even asked the guy in front of me, I said, I don't remember, I said, did somebody slam on their brakes? And he shook his arms and he says, I don't know. He didn't really know what happened. It was stop and go traffic, and I don't know what happened, other than the fact that I did hit the person in front of me. Now, there was a person he hit because it's stop and go traffic on a Friday, on a holiday, and there was so much traffic out there, you are literally inches from each other, which is what I'm getting cited for, by the way, following too closely. So that's neither here nor there. It's just the facts. However, the person in front of him, he tapped the first person in front of him as well. Now, perspective, and also how you want to look at that situation. Do I want to look at that situation? Like I said, boo-hoo, now I've got to go look for a different car. I am financially put out, which I am. They're not, I'm not getting a lot of money from it, and I still owe on my car. Or do I want to look at it like, pay attention to your lessons because that was for a reason, okay? If the car, the person in front of me had an F250, okay? Barely any damage, maybe scratches, okay? The car in front of him was a little small, I don't remember the name of the car, but it was a little like Sonata or something like that, but it was a small car. It was for her company that she worked for, okay? They were both able to drive away. Nobody was injured, has it on the police report, no injuries. They were fine when I asked them. They were fine when the policeman asked them. None of us were injured. My airbag did not go off, even though it should have, and everyone is curious about that, which would have caused burns, broken nose, whatever. Their vehicles are very repairable. My vehicle was totaled. So, should I look at that as a boo-hoo, this happened to me, oh my gosh, negative thing? Or should I put the perspective as it is? If the car would have been in the middle, she would have gotten hurt. Her car would have been smashed up, no doubt. Between an F-250 and a Toyota 4Runner, and my Toyota 4Runner, the whole front end got damaged, crashed up. No doubt she would have been hurt. Okay. That's huge right there. Just the idea that they put a 250 in front of me. All right. That tells me, and there are so many different perspectives, so many different scenarios I can look at. That tells me, stop paying attention to the fact that the accident happened and, all the bad stuff that follows that, insurance and all this kind of stuff. Start looking at why you had that accident now. Was it telling you to pay attention to something? I don't remember what happened, okay? But let me tell you, I am more than alert now. I am very alert. Every second of driving, I'm very alert, okay? Part of that was understanding that I may be going, and I believe this part of my lesson was understanding that I may be going through difficult times, and I may have been going through difficult times over the last year and a half, and such. In a lifetime, I will, in the future as well. But that reminds me once again that my angels are with me, and I believe in that. Okay? They were with me. They keep me safe. All right? Now, I can go out and get hit by a car tomorrow. I could get shot, anything. Then that means that it was my time. Okay? But now I'm going to go back to the other scenario. Was almost running over myself with my car. This is the lesson that I've learned. Like I said, angels always being with me. Okay? Now, when I was back in California, I had to leave and get to the airport at like 4 o'clock in the morning. I was going to some sort of conference they chose me for, and I was backing out of a garage at a rental home that we had. Now, the driveway went down a little. There was a little dip in the road in front of us, and then, of course, the other row of houses on the other side. Now, here's what I did, and it was a boneheaded move. My car's battery was dead, randomly out of nowhere. I have to leave. I have to get to the airport. My car was dead. I call a friend. He decides to come, one of my controller friends. He decides to come and help jumpstart me. I realize he can't get in there. There's no way he can get in there to jumpstart me, so I need to be proactive so that I'm ready to go because I'm going to be in such a hurry. I start backing my car out. I put it in neutral. I start pushing it back. Guess what happens? All of a sudden, it gains momentum. All right, this is the first time I realized how heavy that car was. It gains momentum. It goes down the hill, and as it's going down the hill, I run behind it because I look and I realize on the other side of that street, there's a brand new truck parked there in the street. And I'm like, oh no, I'm about to crash that car. That's my frame of mind at the time. Not danger, but I'm going to crash 2 cars. I've got to stop it. I run behind my car. And I start pushing on it and realize, oh my gosh, my car is too heavy. I never realized how heavy that car was. Now I'm stuck behind the car as the car's coming toward me, toward the parked truck. Okay. Here's where my angels are always there. And this is another thing of just having faith and hope. Okay. Talk to your angels, whoever you consider those being, whether you consider guardian angels or God, or even if you just look at it as blind faith. This is a good reason to have it. Interestingly enough, right before I got to that truck, my car leveled out enough for me to slow it down. I was able to stop my car. And let me tell you, that woke me up. I have a bunch of scenarios like that, by the way, but I don't have enough time to talk about them. But I just want you to keep this in mind coming into the new year. Start having faith. Start having hope. Believe in what's meant to be will be. Pay attention to every lesson that you are supposed to be learning through all of these scenarios. Hold on to that. Hold on to the lessons as positive, even if they were painful, even if they had to do with painful scenarios. Okay? Use it throughout the year to better yourself. Okay? Use it to figure out who you really are, how much you may have buried deep inside. I've been talking about this for months and months and months, and this is very, very significant. Okay, so I'm going to get down to the next part. Set intentions. Okay, we're going to get over all that part now. We're going to start 2019 on a good note. I may extend this into next week if I don't get through enough of these. I'm so super excited, and I have so many. This is just going to come. This is just going to flow. I only have a few notes here, but there's so many different things I'm going to start doing for 2019. I'm choosing to use my lessons and figure out what changes to make and how I handle situations and such in 2019. Also figure out who I am, what do I want. It is perfect timing that I got there right before the year ended, and it was with perfect timing. Now, go back and listen to Elizabeth Peru. You'll understand that that was all meant to be. It's supposed to be that way. Real quick note on that. Elizabeth Peru talks about how 2018 was the beginning of a 9-year cycle. I can't explain it all because it's not on the top of my head, by the way. I did talk about it before, but she says basically it goes in 9-year cycles. Or I think it's 10-year cycles, what's going to happen in 9 years. Like I said, I'm going to have to go back and look that up. But keep that in mind that every year basically is a step in that process. The beginning of last year was a beginning to start setting up for the year, I think it's 2027. I could be wrong. I will try to look that up and try to remember to talk in the future about that. But like I said, look up Elizabeth Peru as well, and she'll explain that. It's 9-year cycles, I believe. Oh, I wish I had that. So the moral of that story is that every year we do go through a different phase. Last year was a huge phase, and that phase actually had to do with, well, she said it's world service. But it's not necessarily world service in just the way you look at it, like servicing the world. She was talking about how getting ourselves together and like making ourselves priority is world service, because when we fill ourselves up, and I talked about this in a previous show as far as like filling up your cup, your own cup, before you fill out others, she says that's considered a world service. I mean, how many people are if people don't fill up their own cups, you don't fill up your own energy inside, you don't, self-love, self-healing, all of that, you can't be any good to other people. It's just a constant draining process to everybody, including yourself. That's what she was talking about, is you are doing a world service by doing what you are meant to do, being who you are meant to be, healing, self-love, put yourself first. And think about it this way, if everyone in the universe took care of themselves, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and such, then we would all be taken care of, okay? Excuse me. So that's a world service. That's a world service to put ourselves first, because we run ourselves down, who's going to help us? And then we affect everybody else. So anyway, like I said, that goes in those years. So the next year, I wish I knew off the top of my head, what she was talking about, what the focus is. But I'll tell you what, this year was right on track. Okay, so our intentions. Take what we really learned at the beginning of that period of time, which it is. It's the beginning of a big, long stretch that's going to take me into retirement and what I should expect. My outcome started the beginning of last year is what I'm saying. According to her, the outcome by that year, like I said, I think it's 2027, we are building up over these years to the big outcome. What we created will happen that year. Okay, so don't waste it. Lessons. That first year, lessons, understanding who we are, healing, understanding what has caused us to be who we are and such, right? Okay, so I personally am going to set intentions. And my intentions are going to be based off of all the lessons I've learned, for one. It's also going to be based on my desires. I'm not going to create Now they say target, this is different, I think, like doing a vision board and trying to be as precise as you can, or throwing it out to the universe as precise as you can with what you want. I agree with, but I think there's a fine line between doing that, I'm learning, between doing that and setting your intentions with not trying to control the outcome. Okay. I think a lot of that, personally, I think a lot of that has to do with us setting our intentions that may not be for our highest good. Sometimes our desires aren't really for our highest good. So we get derailed and it looks like we didn't get what we wanted. And then ultimately, as we change or learn lessons or go through bad spells, we end up getting what we want at some point. But I think we get what we want when we learn those lessons, when we keep in mind that life is about learning. Okay, that's my belief. So I'm going to set intentions, long-term intentions, and I just told you about like the 9-year destination thing. Short-term intentions, I'm going to look at things, and I had a show about this way back, about the difference between like goals, resolutions, and bucket list items. I'm going to think about all that. I think goals are a big, important, long-term, lifetime thing. Resolutions could be what you decide to accomplish in 1 year. Maybe accomplish it. Maybe it'll start habits and then add to it the next year. That's kind of a calendar year thing for me. And then bucket list items, whether it's in this year or in a lifetime, add things to my bucket list. I'm changing some of my bucket list items this year. I'm going to be very specific with bucket list items. I decided to take a salsa dancing class. I decided to concentrate this year, or at least try to develop the habit of moving more and getting my body moving. Some of it has to do with sensuality and getting back that girl I am before everything tensed me up. I'm not talking physically, I'm not talking sexually, I'm just talking in general as loosen up. Not everything has to be a big deal. Everything can just be, fun. It could just be exciting. Get that passion back in general. Passion for life, passion for whatever. Some of that has to do with that midsection solar plexus and your, your sacrum. Okay? That's sexuality, yes, but it's also creativity. It's also movement in your midsection. Okay? Movement is a big deal in unleashing blocks, mental, emotional, and physical, spiritual. Okay, so one of those things I decided to do is I have a set of 10 salsa dancing classes. I'm going to start doing maybe some yoga to release that midsection anyway, because it's tight. I talked about that before, about how your emotions actually tighten up your psoas. That was really interesting. I don't have time to continue talking about that though. So I'm going to go from there, and if I enjoy it, or even if I don't enjoy it, I think I'm going to move on to another type of dance. I think I'm going to get my body moving, and I'm going to get all blocks removing themselves through the year, and I'm going to concentrate on the dancing part. I'm going to get my passion back. I'm going to get my sensuality back. That's a big deal as well. That's human existence, okay? There's something very spiritual in your sensuality. There's nothing wrong with that, okay? Part of that is movement, okay? So that's what I'm choosing to do. And I've had Rosetta Stone Italian edition for a couple of years now, and I don't use it, okay? I paid an HSN reduced price, but I paid decent money for this, right? Funny thing is, I was at work yesterday, and my supervisor starts laughing because we were talking about it, and he said, "You're not going to do that." I'm like, that's the motivation I needed, because I am that girl. You tell me I can't do something, I can allow my overly independent nature and my overly take on the world nature, I can let it loose a little bit, because you just told me I couldn't do it, and I can prove that I can. And what that's going to do is that's going to bring me a desired result of a lifetime. That's been a bucket list item for a lifetime. I have the I have the information, or the Rosetta Stone. I have what I need. It's just a matter of making it a priority. I want to learn another language. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. So those are 2 bucket list items that I added. I don't have time to sit here and figure out the rest of them. Maybe I'll tell you some of those in another episode. So some of the things that I say in the maybe 9 or 8 minutes we have left, these are ideas. Okay, these are all different things that we, or I, or you, or all of us, or none of us, whatever, we can do. These are all just, things that I'm thinking that's kind of, bouncing back and forth in my head to start 2019 off on a good note. Meditation. And there was an article I wish I had time to read that Shelly Wilson, my dear friend Shelly Wilson, actually sent to me because we've been talking about some similar things lately. And we were talking about this to a certain extent. Meditation, the article read that meditation in your brain, what affects you, or meditation affects you the same way as sex does, but it's a different part of your brain. I thought that was really interesting. That is very interesting. So that shows you, even sex, how spiritual that is. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about that. I don't want it to go too much further. But meditation is something to stay grounded. Meditation is to clear up your mind. Meditation is something to calm everything down. Meditation can also bring you messages. Meditation could simply be taking a moment to breathe. Okay, meditation is something I keep talking about. And I've needed it for a long time. I don't make that a habit, and I need to do that. Meditation is huge. I'm probably going to try to do more yoga. There's a thing online on Facebook, and it's called Daily OM. Daily OM. And they send things, and they give you the option of paying like anywhere from $15 to $25. You scroll down, whatever you can afford is how they have it worded. And they'll send you like these programs. I have one in there that I bought, and I haven't used it yet. It's it's supposed to be like a $500 value to teach you yoga and to go through any kind of yoga. And you know that you can do yoga to enhance or to motivate or energize. That's what I'm trying to say. To energize you, you can have yoga to relax you. Some yoga helps release different things. Yoga is like different music. Depends on what you choose to get their desired results. So I'm going to do like more yoga and stuff as well. Let's start journaling. That's a big deal. And I realize that I don't do that. I should be journaling what I eat, just for food allergies and such. I should be journaling my dreams because messages come in dreams. I believe that as well, as everybody does. Journaling, just getting off onto paper things that you have in your mind or in your heart so that you don't have to hold on to it so much. Part of control, I've realized, visualizing control. I visualize it like this because I feel like when you're trying to hold in a lot of information, thoughts, feelings, everything else, in order to not forget it or not let it get all mixed up, it's almost like physically hugging ourselves to hold all that information in. When you journal or record something, you can let it go because you're not going to forget. It's not going to be released beyond your control to retrieve it. Okay, and I realize that over time. That's a big deal. Journaling at night gets those thoughts on paper. It is safeguarded. It's recorded. Now you can let go and release it and keep yourself open for the next bit of information or the next sign or whatever. Okay, so let me see. Physical fitness, I told you that. Physical fitness, I'm going to concentrate more now, not only for self-esteem, for what you look like, but how you feel. Physical fitness releases hormones, okay? Physical fitness can change your life because of hormones, releasing those hormones, dopamine and what's the other one? There are feel-good hormones, okay? When you release those hormones, it helps relax you. It helps ground you. Therefore, you can think more clearly. Life is happier. Goals are more set in stone, everything else. So, like I said, also, the dancing and all that, doing physical fitness keeps blocks unblocked. So many different things in blockages, whether it's emotional blocks, whether it's our chakras, whatever. I believe that keeping that chi kind of flow kind of thing is actually very, very important. Okay, this is stuff I don't do, and I'm going to start really doing it. And like I said, releasing that in midsection is creativity and sexuality, sensuality, but it's also releasing emotions from your psoas muscles. I will talk about that article again in the future. Let me see some other things that we can do. Start listening to music. Start listening to binaural tones. Whatever outcome you want. Not trying to control the outcome. But if you say, okay, I need to relax, or I need to energize, whatever. There are what are called binaural, B-I-N-A-R-A-U-R-L. Wait, B-I-N-A-U-R L-A-L. I'm sorry. I should have written it down because I'm not picturing it. As I'm saying it, I'm not picturing it in my head. That's really weird. So anyway, binaural tones. You can look them up on YouTube. You can buy a set, whatever. And you listen to these tones, and there's a certain way to do it. I do have a story with that. Wish I had time to tell you, because you do have to be careful with it. But using binaural tones actually takes your brain waves into different patterns, and it helps you achieve the results you're trying to achieve. So they're very interesting. Or regular music. So the 80s do something for me. Country music does something for me. I'm going to start using more music as well to enhance the emotions I'm trying to enhance, but also without masking emotions I'm truly going through. That is a big deal. I've been doing that, so that's not a big deal for 2019. But allowing yourself to feel the emotions that come up, even if those emotions are not pleasant, helps you release them, and also helps you analyze them and figure out what's causing those emotions, where in life you need changes. Okay, some of it could actually be health. Maybe you're going through different emotions, and if you keep trying to suppress it, you don't realize that you are having a problem with depression or lack of dopamine or an actual physical symptom. So let's stop trying to suppress all of our emotions is a huge thing. Let me see. There's so many different things that we can do. Doing a vision board. Okay, I chose some things on my vision board, if I do one this year, not committing myself to too much structure, which right here is what I'm saying. I may or may not do a vision board if I don't want to overload myself with all this to the point where I'm not really getting anything out of it, and to the point where I'm living in the future, just trying to check everything off my checklist and not actually getting anything out of it. And I talked about that in my episode about my bucket list stuff. Defining and tackling Mel's bucket list. Okay, so there's so many different things, and maybe next week what I may do is come on here, because I would like to actually plan on a lot of these things. At one point, I really wanted to develop my own little meditation in the moment, what I'm visualizing, and I wanted to kind of start the show off doing a meditation and maybe end the show doing my own version of a meditation and see how that goes. I don't know how that'll go. I've never done it before, but I visualize a lot. And with the motivation, inspiration I have inside me right now, I'm very excited. I'm very happy, but I'm also very grounded for 2019. And I kind of want to express that somehow. I kind of want to see if I can do that. Do my own little meditation, walk you through it, and see if that affects anyone on a positive level. So anyway, so much more to talk about, so many different ideas. I'm sorry that, or I apologize that I didn't get to more ideas about starting the new year and motivation, inspiration, like the meditation and all that kind of stuff. But I really enjoy telling you my stories, because as I tell you, it reminds me of what's going on in my own world, okay? Which is the idea behind the show anyway. The more I tell you about stuff, the more it comes straight to the top of my head, and I enjoy that. So I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful New Year's. 2019, we're going to be doing the Happy New Year throughout the year like we do. Hold on to the good stuff. Reflect back to 2018. Think about everything you've been through. Don't hold on to the negative in an emotional way, but hold on to it in a mental way. Like, hold on to it in your head. Analyze it. Don't feel the emotion behind it. Just analyze it as a lesson. Go back to the positive in 2018 and feel it. How's that? I think that would be a really great idea. So anyway, thank you so much for listening and tuning in. I am excited to bring another year of gosh only knows what's coming. But stay tuned right now for Tiffany Lewis on Be the Change coming up next. And I'll talk to you next Tuesday evening, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on ClearSourceRadio.com. Good night, everybody. Happy New Year.